What's up, everybody? Today I had a conversation with Steve, who's an acquaintance through Facebook, and we have a mutual friend. Steve initially started commenting on a Facebook post of one of my videos, that was a while back, and I asked him to come on and have a discussion since he's not a vegan himself, and we get into a lot of different areas in this conversation. I think you're going to really enjoy it, and to me at least, it remained pretty civil, which is good. Enjoy the video and don't forget to like it, and if you want more info to help you on your vegan journey, then make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so that way next week when I have another video coming out and I'm yakking about something else vegan, you'll be the first to know. Thanks and enjoy the video. Well, Steve, thanks for joining me here today on Vegan Yak. I appreciate it. Like I mentioned before, it is surprisingly difficult to get people that aren't vegan to come on and to discuss veganism as a topic. So I appreciate you being open-minded and willing to come on and to discuss your beliefs. And that's what I hope to do, is just have a conversation with you about what you believe in and kind of, hear what your side of the story is. So that way, hopefully the audience can see a civil conversation between a couple of people about maybe a difficult topic at times. So I appreciate that. To give everyone a little bit of context, Steve and I actually met through Facebook. We have a mutual friend, Austin. And Austin had shared one of my videos and Steve had come on and put some comments. And we started having this conversation there. And then I just asked Steve if he'd be willing to hop on and continue that conversation on Zoom for a video for the channel. And he very politely agreed to that. So that's kind of where we're at. I mean, I don't know that we necessarily need to jump back into where we were, but basically part of what we were talking about was personal choice, because that was the video that Austin had shared, and some of the beliefs around that, and then started getting into veganism a little bit. But I don't know that we necessarily need to dive back there. I guess where I'd like to start is more so your opinions, about veganism, kind of where you stand. I know that you had mentioned that previously your wife was a vegetarian, right?
Yes, she is.
So
I guess pescatarian or whatever it's called, because she eats fish. But
pescatarian then,
yeah.
yeah. So I know that you are open to some of the things in that regard and whatnot, but yeah, I guess like the statement that most vegans make is that, it's immoral to eat animals. So I guess I would love to hear your thoughts on that and see kind of where you stand and see what claims you make.
Oh, I mean, I, I mean, okay. So I go back to my wife real quick. Like, she's not a vegetarian because she made a choice. Like, she doesn't want to eat because cruelty to animals or anything.
Sure.
She is Catholic and gave up meat for Lent one
Okay.
year when she was a child. And after Lent was over, she got sick from eating meat, because her body wasn't able to break down the protein. So she just kind of stuck with being a vegetarian then. So
Gotcha.
she's like the best kind of vegetarian because, she'll still cook me like bacon and still cook me, a burger. She makes great burgers, but, but no, my opinion about like veganism and all that, like, it's not for me, I love a steak, I love my meat. But if it's for you, that's totally cool. I, respect your opinion, and yeah, everybody has their own opinion. So if I respect it, you respect mine, and we're good. Uh, it's the only time I ever have an issue with anybody who's a vegan or vegetarian or anything is when they start like bashing me for not being a vegan or whatever, which I haven't had. I've never had that. Uh, but I've had people who are vegetarians who got on me about it. Uh, but I just feel like everybody should just respect other people's opinions. Like, I understand where you're coming from with wanting to not eat meat because you don't like the way that they treat animals, and that's fine. I agree with that you shouldn't. I don't necessarily agree with the way like big companies that with their produce, how they the mass slaughterhouse and stuff. No, I don't really agree with that. But doesn't really change the fact of that I still like eating a hamburger.
Sure.
Like, I'm the worst with this because people have sent me those videos. They're like, how hot dogs are made, and they show, and I watch the video and I just go, I really want a hot dog now. Like,
Yeah.
like
You
those
might be, you might
videos
be
don't
alone in
phase
that. I
me at
think most
all.
people that see hot dog videos, yeah, are usually disgusted, but yeah, I understand where you're coming
Yeah.
from.
Oh, it's definitely disgusting, and I'm like, that's gross. But now I want a hot dog because I like a hot dog.
Sure. Sure, yeah, and I think I can agree with you that any vegan or any person shouldn't be necessarily like turning somebody, that does these things into the villain of the story or anything like that. I mean, especially most vegans aren't like, they weren't born vegan. I mean, some are. I have an interview with someone that was born vegan and raised vegan for her entire life on my channel, but most people are not like that. Like myself, I ate animals for 28 years before going vegan. I would have never thought that I would have gone vegan before in my life. Just like you, I enjoyed the taste of bacon and hot dogs. I ate more meat and animal products than I think anybody I can remember, being around me in my circles. So like for me, like, yeah, I can't look back and judge, because like it's the same thing. It's like I'm judging my previous self. I wish I would have gone vegan sooner for sure, but I was also there. So I can empathize with that position for sure. I think, yeah, you hit on a couple of things that I'd love to discuss. And part of it is what we were kind of discussing in the comments too, of just like respecting each other's opinions. And I think it's fine to respect each other's opinions, but I do think that there's potentially a difference in someone's opinion versus someone's action that is potentially causing harm, or when someone's actions actually have a victim. Like, would you agree like that's potentially different than just having an opinion, is like when someone's actions actually cause harm?
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, once again, if I don't know how to answer that, because yeah, if someone's like, if you're gonna harm somebody, then yeah, obviously I'm gonna step up and be like, yo, what are you doing? Uh, but once again, and it kind of goes back to like, I'm not. I kind of feel like I don't know how to word this. I have a hard time with words. It's Monday. Um, no, so I don't feel like I gotta tread carefully, because I feel like I'm gonna say something. I'm gonna say, and it's gonna be like, "Oh, you don't think animals' lives matter," which isn't true. But
Sure.
I don't think like animals' lives. Like I'm a religious guy, and so like I believe that animals were put on the earth for us to eat. You know, so that goes back to the do I think I'm okay with eating them? Do I feel like the mass slaughterhouses are good? No. Like so that was actually one question I wanted to ask you,
Yeah.
because obviously you're against mass slaughterhouses, and you touched on the way that they treat the animals and whatnot. But are you against people? Let's say because I have a lot of land out where I live. I could perfectly able have like my own cows, my own chickens, and raise them, and then you know kill them and have them for free instead of going to the store and buying stuff.
Yeah.
Are you against that too? Like, is it all like, animals being murdered or killed for food? Or is it just the mass slaughterhouses?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Yeah, and definitely one that I had before going vegan, and definitely everybody like that's never been vegan, I think, has that question cross their mind at one point in time. So you're definitely not alone in wondering. So the definition of veganism, it's actually a philosophy, a way of life of trying to reduce animal harm as far as it is possible and practicable. Which means for me
Mhm.
that, yeah, like my personal views as a vegan, I would absolutely be against any form of animal exploitation, as long as it's not necessary, as long as it's possible and practical to avoid it, then I think we should. I don't know that my opinion necessarily matters, because I'd like to know what your opinions are. But as a vegan, yeah, to
Yeah.
suggest the question, absolutely, yeah. I wouldn't support, like, I wouldn't personally have backyard chickens or anything like that,
Oh yeah.
because I still think it's exploiting animals, and I'd be more than happy to dig into, why, in certain circumstances. I don't believe in that, but I do want to hit on, like, back onto the topic that we were on really briefly too, because it's like,
Yeah.
for instance, with the personal choice thing or respecting people's opinions, and you brought up a couple of things which I'd love to dig into. You brought up religion, and what animals' purpose are and things like that. I'd love to hit on those too, but really quickly before we move on into that.
Yeah.
So like with the personal choice aspect of it, like for me, and I use this example a lot, it's like if somebody says, "Hey, I want to wear a black shirt," or something like that, I'm like, okay, I don't care. All right. I'm wearing a black shirt now. Like, it's not affecting
Yeah.
any other humans. It's not affecting any other animals. It's not doing anything. I mean, unless I find out that that shirt is having some sort of effect, like it just doesn't matter to me, right? Like it's their choice. It's their total personal choice.
Yeah.
There's not a victim involved. But if somebody said, I want to raise dogs for dog fighting, then all of a sudden I'd go, well, no, because even though, yeah, technically it's your choice to do that, that's not something that I would be okay for because there's a victim involved, right? And
Hmm.
so I
Oh
guess I
yeah.
would like I assume that you'd be on the same page there that like you wouldn't be okay with dog fighting or like, some other abuse to animals.
Oh, well, yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, you're the reason why you're killing the cow or you're killing the chicken is because you're going to eat it.
Mhm.
You doing it racing dogs fights. There's no gain out of it. It's just like hunters who I don't really necessarily agree with like sport hunting. You
Sure,
know, but if you hunt and you kill a deer and you use every part of that deer that is able to be used, which I know a lot of, I'm not a hunter, but I know a lot of people who are. I mean, I live in Virginia, uh,
sure,
so, yeah, so, I mean, there's a lot of hunters out here and I agree with that. I have no issue with that. My buddy, at work actually brings in, what is it? Venison, right? Deer.
dear, yeah,
Yeah. He brings that in all the time, man. He's like, check out this deer jerky I made. Check out, and so, I mean, yeah, I got no issue with that, because you know, the deer, he shoots it. He uses the antlers for stuff at his house. He uses the hide. He uses everything. You know.
sure. So I guess then what like you would say is like, well, I mean, you would step in the dogfighting situation because it's causing harm to animals and you view it for this like unnecessary reason. And so you would step in to stop that. But if someone killing an animal to eat them, you would say that that's not an unnecessary reason. So you wouldn't have a problem with it. That's like your two clarifications between those two things.
Well, yeah. I mean, killing an animal for like profit or gain, like a dog fight. That's there. There's that's profit or gain. There's nothing in it. Killing
Right.
an animal to eat it. That's survival.
Sure. So yeah, I can completely understand where you're coming from, and I've heard this a lot because I think it's originally like when I first heard it, I was like, yeah, that's a good point. That makes a lot of sense. But then I kind of heard a little bit more, and dug a little bit deeper into the research, and I was like, oh yeah, actually maybe there's some fault here with the logic. So I guess the question then would become like, do you think you need to eat animals to survive?
So in this day and age, no.
Okay. I don't think so either. Obviously, I think there's plenty of research that has supported that, and living examples that support that you don't need any animal products to survive anymore, right? So if you're on board there, then wouldn't you agree that killing animals is not out of survival? It's actually out of some other want instead.
I mean, depends on once again your own personal opinion. Like it is out of survival because I want to eat meat. Like I
That's like
actually
your
get I get actually violently ill like if I eat tofu or like any meat substitute, like
sure.
violently ill. Like I have shit my pants numerous times because I've tried that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's some acclimation there to different food, or maybe you're allergic to soy or something. I don't know. So that'd be interesting to maybe discover. But you don't have to have soy or tofu in order to be a vegan. But I mean, if you're in
That's true.
agreement that you don't need animals to survive. Now, there's some people that might need animals to survive in other countries or in tribes or something like that. So I'm not talking about them, but in the modern world here, you don't need to eat animals to survive. So it's not out of survival, it's not out of necessity. So what's the difference like there between hitting it because it's just for pleasure, right? It's just for taste, it's just for convenience.
Personal opinion.
So what would be the difference then between that and the dog fighting? Because that's also just for pleasure. Like that's just, I mean, you might make money or something out of it too, but all of that is also just for pleasure. Like that's just for someone likes dog fighting or whatever. But you would condemn that situation. But this person is also only eating out of pleasure too. There's no need for it. There's no necessity. So wouldn't you deem that both would be like immoral if they're harming animals unnecessarily?
No, because once again, we're not eating the dogs. We're not, I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, yeah, but not every. I mean, yeah, it comes down like a personal opinion. Like, I don't want to eat, you know, like vegan food. I mean, I've had a lot of vegan food. It's not bad. I've actually made vegan meals for my wife, you know, 'cause she's a vegetarian. Uh, you know, but and yeah, it's good and all that, but I like my meat, you know?
Sure.
Like, I mean, I get what you're saying, but I don't think I think it's still comparing like apples to oranges.
Sure, I'm not saying that the situations are exactly the same. You know, obviously someone killing for the pleasure to eat is different than someone killing for the pleasure to watch dogs fight. There may be different pleasures. One is maybe taste buds, one is maybe a visual pleasure or some other sadistic pleasure, but they are still both just pleasure. And so I guess then like I would have to ask you the question of like what do you value more, like taste or life?
And that kind of goes back to my opinion of I believe animals are put on this meal or put on this earth for us to eat. I
Sure.
mean, if if we didn't kill, I guess say we didn't like, you know, like kill the cows and kill chickens and you know just like I don't you think there'd be a overpopulation problem?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Because I know in I could be wrong, but I want to say it's like Iowa. So I don't remember what state, but there's like a huge feral hog outbreak, and they you could if you see a hog, they could you're allowed like it's legal to shoot them any time of the year, not within any hunting season because they're just so rampant out there that if they didn't do it, then it would like they would pretty much like overrun this you know the state
Sure.
because I think it's like I want to say yeah I don't quote me on this because I'm not sure but I think it was like there was like 20 to 1 population out there, like 20 hogs to every one person.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I mean, I kind of feel like same thing with I know also from my friends who are hunters, and once again, I'm not a hunter, I don't know all this, but I just remember them telling me that the hunting actually it's good for the population, once again for the overpopulation, growth of the deer, and like I said, I don't know 100%. I know that they were telling me about it. I don't remember everything.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, good
uh,
questions. So with the overpopulation of animals, I mean, right now there's 70 billion land animals that are farmed, you know, so they do outnumber us 10 to 1. But the question is, why do those animals exist? Why do we have 70 billion land animals? That doesn't include the trillions of fish and marine life that we kill every year for food. But why do you think we have this many animals?
well, it definitely, obviously, people make money from breeding them to sell them to slaughterhouses, you know, X, Y, and Z. But then, once again, like I said, I don't agree. I'm not necessarily agree with the slaughterhouses aspect of, you know, keeping 100 cows wrapped up in, you know, a like 10-foot cube, you know,
Yeah,
and just pump them full of steroids. I don't agree with that, you know. But if, once again, if you raise your own cattle, like
sure.
you know, like I know there's a lot of restaurants out here in Virginia, and I'm sure everywhere else in the world, that they only buy their cattle and their livestock and their, you know, all their food from local farms, local, you know, so that way they're not supporting those huge slaughterhouses and huge, you know,
Sure.
uh, you know, all those businesses who make money off of exploiting the animals and whatnot.
Yeah, so yeah, I'll address that in a second because it's a good point. As far as like the overpopulation part, you're absolutely right. Like all of these animals are bred into existence because people want to eat them. So if people went vegan, and the whole world's not going to go vegan overnight, we all know that. Like there's a gradual movement of change where more and more people are accepting that we need to move away from factory farms, we need to move away from animal agriculture for environmental reasons, human suffering for animals. So as that gradually continues to change, they're going to stop breeding as many animals onto the planet. And if they're not breeding the animals onto the planet, they won't be here. So they won't be overpopulating us. They won't be like running wild. And the remaining animals can be set up onto animal sanctuaries and other places. So if we stopped eating animals, especially on a gradual level like it's happening now, the animals are not going to overpopulate or like overrun us or anything. So that's not a concern that we have to be worried about. As far as does that make sense? Like how that
Yeah,
changed?
no,
Okay.
as I was asking the question, I was like, this probably sounds really ignorant. I was like, but
No, it's a no, it's a good question. It's so many people think about it. I don't know if I ever thought about that previously. I just probably wasn't thinking about the animals overrunning us. But yeah, there's 70 billion of them, so it's a perfectly legitimate question. But again, we'll stop breeding them into existence. So it just won't be an issue because they won't be like, we're not going to go, if we went vegan overnight, yeah, we'd have to figure out what to do with 70 billion animals, but that's not going to happen. So we don't have to worry about that. As far as like the factory farming and that sort of conditions go, yeah, it sounds like you're definitely opposed to that. Like, is that because, again, you think it's unnecessary animal cruelty?
I did not hear the question. I probably you broke up.
Sorry, no problem. Yeah, I was just saying, like, it sounds like you're against animal farming in the fact of like factory farms and stuff like that. So because, and I'm assuming that's because they're treated unfairly. It's because you care about animals. You don't want them to be harmed unnecessarily, I assume.
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah, do I still eat at like Burger King and stuff? Yeah, occasionally. I don't do fast food as much as I used to, but yeah, yeah, I would have to say, yeah, I don't, like I said, I don't really agree with the slaughterhouse aspect, like factory farming,
Yeah.
whatnot.
So
But
then the question would be like, so like the only reason that factory farms exist, like why do factory farms exist?
it's like any other big corporation.
Yeah, because people are purchasing from them, right? Like if people weren't buying
Yeah,
their products, they wouldn't exist anymore, right?
it's true.
So like if you're against something like that, I would have to ask like then do you support it? And yeah, unfortunately like 95% of our animal products come from factory farms. Like there's no way to feed 7 billion people on this planet the amount of meat that we do and not have factory farms. It's the most
Oh,
efficient way of killing animals. Like, and so with
yeah.
that comes a lot of different things. So if it's something that you're against and you don't support, like, but you admit that you're buying these products from, maybe a restaurant, Burger King, the store, whatever it is, I would ask then, like, is that something that you would then consider, moral, like to continuously support something that you're against?
Well, it kind of comes down to the fact like I that I'm not necessarily for it, but I'm also not necessarily against it. I mean, it doesn't bother me. Like I said, I don't lose any sleep over if that sounds terrible, but like it's not that big of a concern to me where I'm gonna be upset, if that they're still running, if that makes sense. Like I'm indifferent towards it, if that's the way of saying it.
No, I think that's fine. Like I felt the same way, honestly, beforehand, before I went vegan, because I didn't do any research. Like I didn't see slaughterhouse footage until I started doing this research, except for I think like one time in high school, like they played like a small clip for some class I was in. Otherwise, like I had no idea what was going on this planet. I had no idea how the animals were treated because it's not something they show us. Like if they want to sell their products, they show us a picture of a burger. They don't show us what's going on in a slaughterhouse. They know that that would turn people
Mhm.
off, right? So it's no surprise that like there's not a connection there. That's actually like it's a veil that's like keeping us hidden from what's going on. But you do know what's happening. Like you have heard about it. Obviously, you brought it up. Like you don't support factory farming. So you're saying kind of like you're indifferent, but I guess the question would be like, do you think you'd be living more in alignment with what you're for, being against this unnecessary animal abuse if you were avoiding factory farm meat? Or do you think it would be better to be eating factory farm meat?
Uh, I mean, honestly, I guess if I was thinking that much about it, it would obviously be not buying factory farm meat. If
Yeah.
there was actually, I would say I'm not gonna say if there was, because there is a place that sells like local farm, cattle and livestock, and you can go there instead of going to like, Safeway or something. Uh, so I mean, if it was if it was not out too much out of my way from home, I would be going there more than the normal. But
Sure.
so it comes
Yeah.
into convenience.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I think most people would say the same statement. I would have said that even when I was not vegan. Like it would be more in alignment with my morals to avoid factory farm meat if it's possible. And it sounds like you're in agreement with that, that it would be more in alignment with your own morals to avoid it if it's possible. Oh, shoot. Did I lose you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I pushed the wrong button.
No,
I accidentally hit a button.
no problem.
What
So,
button?
so it sounds like you're in agreement there that it would be more in alignment with your own morals to avoid factory farm meat. Like that would be better for you if you could, if it's possible, right?
Yeah.
So then I guess like the end, yeah, like so one, it sounds like that's maybe something that like you could focus on or whatever it is if that's something that you wanted to make an impact on. Obviously, it sounds like you're more indifferent to it now, but again, that's also how I was before too. So I totally understand that. But once I saw slaughterhouse footage and everything like that, I was like, well, how can we continue to support this? Because your dollars that you spend and my dollars that I spend if I buy factory farm meat immediately goes back into their pockets and tells them, hey, we need more animals to supply this demand. It's, simple supply and demand. So if we want that to stop, then the only action that we can do is what?
Well, so I kind of feel like this the same way, and I'm kind of digressing a little bit.
Oh, that's fine.
Uh, I kind of feel like it's the same thing with like fossil fuels and all that, like the factories, and it's like, yeah, we know it's not healthy for the planet, and we want to change. We want it to be better, but there's no way we can go back to how it was before, like we had fossil fuels and before we had all the factories. Like we are the way our lifestyle is too dependent on all that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, not saying that we shouldn't try to make things better, but there's no way that you know that we're going to be able to ever go back to like how life was before the industrial age. you
Sure.
know and so I kind of feel that way with like the same thing as we have. It's once again not saying we should not try to be better, like buy more local and whatnot, to not fund these factory farms. But I don't think we're ever going to be able to go back from not being able to have factory farms.
Sure.
Maybe that's just
I
looking at
think,
like glass half empty type thing, but
yeah, maybe it's just a pessimistic view. I'm usually pretty pessimistic myself, but I would say I'm actually optimistic in this area, and I'll tell you why in a second.
yeah,
But at least you would agree that for your individual contribution to it, the best way for you to stop funding it is to stop spending your dollars on the factory farm meat, right? Like
oh, absolutely.
that's how you could personally stop that contribution, right?
Hmm. Definitely.
So as far as like if it's going to make an impact, yeah, it's interesting because like being in the vegan movement and being a vegan activist, it's like it's at times I go through these phases where I'm like, oh my gosh, it's never going to change. We're screwed. Like the whole planet's going to die. We're done. And then I go through
Yeah.
other phases where I'm just like totally optimistic. I'm like, today's the day. So I totally understand where you're coming from there. But what we have seen in any movement, and that's social movement in the past or in this current movement, fossil fuels, green energy, all this sort of stuff that you're talking about, there's always going to be these moments of pessimism where you're thinking it's not going to change, like especially with green energy and stuff like that. But look at how much progress we've made with solar and wind and other energy sources at this point in time. Like, and it's the same thing with animal products too. Like look back 20 years and look at the grocery stores. Like how many plant milks were in the grocery stores 20 years ago? It was just like soy and rice milk, right? Like, but nowadays with the movement growing, there's soy milk, rice milk, coconut milk, pea milk, cashew milk, almond milk, all these flax milk, hemp milk. Like there's so many different choices that are there now, and that's because the demand has grown. So even though you're only one drop in the ocean, making this change, it's still your individual contribution that you can make. And if we all collectively do that together, we would be making progress towards this goal. And the only way to do that is to change our individual actions. I mean, do you agree with any of that or disagree with any of that, I guess?
Oh, yeah, dude, absolutely. I mean, like I said, every little bit helps. It's like, even if like at your job you get like a 2-cent raise, yeah, it's only 2 cents, but it still makes a difference. You
Yeah,
know. Um, but it's funny that like yeah, yeah, like I don't really drink milk,
sure.
anymore, just because my wife drinks almond milk. I don't like almond milk. I don't like almonds. Uh, and my kids are okay with the almond milk, so they drink the almond milk. And so like if anybody ever gets milk, it's me, and then like it goes bad like because I hardly ever drink it. But like yeah, I mean it's funny though because like I don't like I've tried coconut water, I've coconut milk, I've tried I've tried a lot of different types of like substitutes for milk. Still like regular old milk. But
Yeah,
once again, I don't really drink it that much. But yeah, no, I agree with like any little contribution helps. But once again, though, like I'm a realist, so like I said, like the world is never going to be able to go back to the way like ever. I don't. I think like maybe they'll probably like make some restrictions on like factory farming, so it's not as cruel, I guess. The word,
sure.
uh, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah. So I guess the question for yourself would just be, are you willing to stop funding it yourself and be a part of that change to live more in alignment with your morals, to stop funding factory farms and to stop that, and move in that direction rather than going, nah, the world sucks. It's never going to change. So I'm just going to do it anyway. Like I envision a world where like everyone's murdering, right? And someone can say,
Yeah.
and where we live in that world, right? I mean, there's wars, there's all this sort of stuff, right? And we could just throw up our hands and say, hey, look, it's never going to change. But does that justify you going out and murdering other people? Like for your own morals, like because everybody else is doing it, because the world's doing it, because it's never going to change? Or should you still change your actions and decide to not murder?
No, no, definitely. I mean, like I said, I would prefer to buy local, uh, farm food if I'm able, like when I'm able to. I should say if I'm able to, when I'm able to. I'd much rather buy the local, farmers, support them, instead of these factory farms. But it's not always in the cards, to be able to do that.
Sure. So I guess then the next logical step for me would be like, okay, so if you're willing to say like, it'd be better to buy these products because they cause less harm to the planet, less harm to animals, less harm to other humans, all this sort of stuff, then would it also be better to just buy the next step in the chain and instead just buy plants instead of buying locally grown animals? Like, wouldn't that also be better?
Yeah, yeah, it would make sense, but it all comes down to once again my personal opinion. I like my meat.
Sure. But if everybody had that view, let's take that situation of like the murdering view again, right? Like everybody's out in the world murdering. I'm sitting here and I'm going, hey, look, Steve, I, I think it would be better to not murder or maybe to locally murder instead and find some nice humans that I can raise to murder and treat them nice, but then kill them. So I think that would be better. But I'm not going to do that. And even better than that would just be to not murder at all. But, it's my personal choice. Like it's my personal opinion that murdering is fine. So like I'm just going to do it. Like, would you have a problem with that logic or no?
Well, once again, I feel like that's kind of like comparing apples to oranges, a very far-fetched like comparison, you know. Like, I mean, so do you like feel bad if like you step on an ant or a spider,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Like you're still killing it, you know?
Yeah, I do feel bad. I try to like when there's a fly in my house, I try to just instead of swatting it, I try to put it outside. If there's a spider, I try to put it outside. Like I don't see any reason for me to step on it and kill it if I don't have to. Like there's no reason for me to do that. When I'm running outside, even I like look down at the ground at times just trying to avoid ant hills and stuff. Like you're never going to be perfect, like ever. I mean, I'm a vegan, like, but veganism is not about perfection. Like, even when I buy plants, there's going to be harm involved. Like, there's going to be some animals that are going to suffer because of that. There's still an impact on the environment, but is what's as possible and practical. It's like the furthest that I can go to try to make as little amount of impact as possible. So for me, it's the most moral choice that I can make. So, and it sounds like for you, you agree that the most moral choice that you could make would be avoiding harming the animals, avoiding causing like the planet destruction and the human suffering, but you're stopping short and saying, but whatever, because I still like to do it. And so,
I guess you could look at it that way, but I mean, like I said, just I it doesn't you call me a bad person, call me whatever, I have no morals or feelings or whatnot, but it doesn't bother me that much. I just guess like I said, it doesn't bother me that much. Like it's not. I'm not losing sleep over it. I'm not like,
I wasn't either. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
No, I totally get you. Like I wasn't losing sleep either before I dug into this and did research. I wasn't like waking up in sweats going, "Oh my gosh, we got to save all these animals." Like, that's not what it was happening, but once I got like the little bit of it scratched and went, you know what? Look, here's the deal. Like, I know now after doing research, I saw slaughterhouse footage, I watched all these documentaries, I read books, I went to conferences, like I did all this research to figure out what was actually happening on this planet. And once that veil was lifted from my eyes and I saw, oh, this is actually what's happening and I'm contributing to that, I'm going, yeah, you know what? The most moral thing for me to do would just be to individually stop contributing to it. Like, the best thing that I could do is just say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to fund these companies anymore. And I view it the same way as anything else. Like imagine like your clothes or something like that. If you knew your clothes came from, you went to a store, you see one shirt on the rack and it's, it's made by slave labor where people are treated terribly. And then on the rack right next to it, there's clothes that are ethically made, maybe here in the States or something, they're paid fair wages, whatever it is. Like it's just no brainer. I'm just going to pick up the shirt that's not causing the suffering. Like to me, for my morals, I'm just going, I just want to make the most moral choice possible here and do whatever I can. Now that shirt might still have an impact. It's still using resources on this planet. It's still using cotton or whatever it is, still using water. But if it's less of an impact and I'm still going to get a shirt out of the situation, to me, it's like, well, I don't need this shirt. So why would I buy that shirt? Even if I like that shirt, I like it maybe even a little bit better than the other shirt. I feel like morally driven to go, yeah, but I don't want to cause the human suffering. I don't want to cause all the detriment. So I'm going to choose this other more ethical shirt. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. But then again, you got to think like your phone. There's parts of your phone or whatever, but it's all made, China and whatnot. And I lived in China for a year. They have no child labor laws. So your TV, your
Oh, yeah.
car, like anything you have is going to be imported from overseas to where who knows, you know. So
No, I think you bring up a great point that this isn't.
you're not going to have a phone, and you're not going to use your computer. You're not going to,
No,
like,
you bring up such a great point where it's like we should look at all these aspects in our life. It's not just veganism. We should look at where we're buying our technology from, our clothes from. We should evaluate these things and we should possibly try to reevaluate where we can do it or how we can do it to make it better. And I think you agree that like if we found a better way to get these phones, then we should do it because we should stop funding, Chinese slave labor if that's where it's coming from. Like, so it's not I don't look at it and go, well, you know what? My phone is made from slave labor, so I might as well also cause this other problem over here. Like I don't use the phone as a justification to do other things that I view as immoral. I look at the phone and I go, we should try to figure out how to do that better. And we should also do this better too. So for me, that's just a support of like, we should look at
yeah.
all these things and look at veganism and go, yeah, you know what? It's better for the planet. It's better for the animals. It's better for our health. It's better for humans that are suffering. Why wouldn't we choose that if we have this option available? You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. But it all comes down to like, corporate greed. You got to go with what's the cheapest to make.
Yeah, but again, why is it the cheapest to make is just because everyone's buying it. So again, what can you do to stop it? Like what's the number one thing that you can do to stop them from funding these terrible things?
Well, once they'd be not buying their product, but you have to have a phone, and all the major, anywhere you go, you're gonna have to get a phone that's been made by Verizon or made by
Right.
AT&T or Apple or
And I agree. Like
Android.
I agree. It would be very hard to live in our current society without this technology. I think you could do it, but for instance, like with my job, I could not have that job, which means I would really harm my own children and stuff like that if I got rid of these things. And I'm not saying everyone should go
Yeah.
live out in a cave in the wild and just do whatever is the least amount of possible. I think again, possible and practicable. But like
But
you
if
said,
you lived in a cage, then you would have to kill animals to eat.
possibly, unless I could figure out some agriculture. But yeah, but the situation is not that. That's not what we live in. You do maybe need a phone, but you don't need meat. Like you don't need animal products in this current day and age. So the situations are not the same where it's like, well, I have to have this phone, so I'm justified in buying it for my job or whatever it is. But the fact is that you don't need animal products.
That's true. But once again though, like what if, let's just talk zombie apocalypse, like the lights go out,
Sure.
then we're in this, survival mode. Like you're gonna have to like eat meat. You're gonna have to
Are you currently in a zombie apocalypse?
we've been living the apocalypse this past year.
For
Worst apocalypse ever.
Well, COVID is like that in a degree, and you know how we could better prevent future pandemics would be avoiding animal agriculture,
Well,
since 70% of like the
all
diseases are
right.
zoonotic diseases. But that's a little off topic. Are you
Right.
actually in a
Yeah,
zombie
we're
apocalypse?
digressing. If you feel like the COVID started from a bat, then I got news for you. But anyways, we've
Well,
digressed.
it's not even just COVID, and we don't necessarily need to get into all of that. I'm talking more just about zoonotic diseases in general, since
Yeah.
most of them are coming
Oh yeah.
from factory farms and animals, like swine flu, H1N1, avian flu,
Yeah. Oh,
mad cow
absolutely.
disease, all that sort of stuff.
Yep.
But more importantly, like, you're not currently in a zombie apocalypse. You are still able to go to the
Yeah.
grocery
Oh
store.
yeah.
So yes, if maybe we're in this situation where we're on an island or we're in a zombie apocalypse and you have to eat meat to survive, okay. But today, right now, you don't have to. It's not the same as the phone, where you need the phone to be able to do your work and your job and all this sort of stuff. Today, to survive, you don't have to eat animals. So, like, again, I guess, like, what's your stance on that? Because if you don't have to, it's the better choice. Do you still think that, again, it would be more in alignment with your morals to just live a vegan lifestyle and not do those things?
Well, it's a choice. I don't know. I wouldn't agree with you saying it's the better choice because I my once again your personal view, yeah, it's a better choice. My personal view, it's your choice. It's cool for you.
But no,
I
but
love
I'm
my meat.
operating,
So
Steve, but I'm operating on what you said. You said that it would be better for the animals, it'd be better for the planet, it'd be better for all these sorts of things. So if it's better,
if there
like,
was no factory farming and all that, but we're never gonna get to that.
well, even if, let's say, we never could, I'm just saying, for your personal morals, not for everybody else's morals or anything else, would it still be better for you to make that choice?
But no,
It would
in
not
my
be better.
personal
So you think causing
no,
more
because
animal suffering, causing more human suffering,
in,
more planet
in my
destruction is better?
in my moral standing, it'd be better to buy local farm cattle, produce, and whatnot, not factory farm and factory, produce, all that stuff.
Sure, but even one
That's my
step
moral
further,
stand.
like locally, let's say that the cows are raised in the nicest way possible or whatever it is, and they're treated really kind, but then they're still killed before they get to live out their natural life. That's still causing more harm than if you were just eating a vegan lifestyle. So do you think causing more harm is better, or you should cause less
But
harm is better?
once again, though, I don't find that as being causing harm in a sense of like other than we are killing this animal to eat it because I believe animals are put on this earth for us to eat.
Okay, but you would still agree it is causing harm. Like, it is killing the animal, right?
Yes, but that once again, there's a reason why we are killing it. We're not killing it for fun. We're not killing it to kill it. We're not killing it for sport. We're not killing it for
But we're killing
profit.
it. But we're killing this animal for an unnecessary reason. We don't have to do it nowadays. So we're still causing unnecessary harm. We don't need to cause this harm anymore.
If that's your view,
Well, that's
once
your
again,
view
like I
too.
said,
You said that's your view too. You said that we don't need to kill these animals anymore. We could survive without
I,
eating animals.
I, if you wanted to,
Right. You can, yeah. Yeah, if you
I
want
mean,
to, you can. That's the definition of can, right? Like, you can
yeah,
do it.
but
So if
you
you
don't have
can
to.
do it,
That's
sorry, I didn't mean to overtalk. What were you saying?
no, no, no. I was say yeah, but you don't have to. Like if it was a you have to do it, like but you have the option. You have your own personal choice.
Right. I don't have to not go downstairs and not kick my dog. I could go downstairs and I could kick my dog. That's my choice. But I can not kick my dog. And so because I can not kick my dog, do you not agree that it would be morally better for me to not kick my dog?
Well, what are you getting? Are you getting any nutrition or any survival ability or anything for kicking your dog?
I'm
No.
well, sure I am because I got to be able to exercise my muscles and use those to survive.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But you're
You
see, but you're not
selfish.
eating the animals for survival. You're not eating them for survival because you don't have to. Again, you don't have to eat the animals to survive. So you can choose to not eat them. So if you can choose to not eat them and not cause the harm, that surely would be better for not causing harm in for your views, not for mine, but for yours. Like it would be better to not cause the harm if you don't have to. And I think that's why you're against factory farming, and that's why you're against abusing dogs, and that's why you're against, raising dogs for dog fighting. That's probably why you're against murder and racism and a bunch of other things. Because if you can choose to not cause harm or pain and suffering and cause some sort of not like the opposite of well-being for an animal or for a human, then you probably think it's better to do that. Like it's the same thing with the sweatshop example. It's the same thing with all of these. Like I'm sure you view it better to not cause pain and suffering if you don't have to. Sorry,
Well,
my
once
dog is
again,
barking. I don't know if you can hear my dog.
yeah, I heard him. Yeah, no. Once again, yeah, but once again, my beliefs. Animals are put on this earth for us to eat.
Sure.
So
So let's
it doesn't. I don't view it as being cruelty to animals if you're buying, like eating an animal. I don't find that cruelty to animals. I guess
so
if make me sound like an asshole or whatever, but
no, it's fine. I think a lot of people hold this view. I just don't know how you can kill an animal. Like people talk about humane slaughter and stuff like that. And to me, that's just an oxymoron. Like humane means being showing compassion or benevolence. So like how do you compassionately kill an animal that doesn't want to die?
well, I mean, I'm not a butcher, so I don't know, but I know that slitting their throat and letting them gag to death or shooting them in the head and they're dead instantly seems a little more humane.
Yeah, so all animals basically get a knife in their throat. Humane, whether it's factory farms or anything else, they go to these same slaughterhouses. They might get a bolt gun in their head. They might get whatever it is. They might not get stunned. They just get a knife across their throat. I can't. How is that compassionately killing the animal who doesn't want to die?
I I would say that's not.
You would say it's not compassionate, right?
Well, I mean, no, because once again, they're just I don't know the words I'm looking for, but so let's just go with
So like, yeah,
yeah.
just I don't think that there's a humane way to kill an animal that doesn't want to die. I mean, they like if you don't want to die yourself, there's no good way of killing you, right? I mean, there's no way that's going to cause you to like not suffer and not be able to like you can't magically kill animals. Now maybe in the future with lab meat or something else you could get meat
Well,
without the animal suffering or something. Maybe that's a possibility in the future. I don't know. But
I mean, would you rather die from like electric chair or be lethal injection to where you
but
just go
that's
to
a
sleep?
false but it's a false dichotomy because I wouldn't rather die at all. There's three choices. It's not kill an animal by a gun, kill an animal by sticking a knife in its throat, and that's it. It's kill an animal by a gun, kill an animal by sticking a knife in its throat, or letting the animal live and just leaving the animal alone and eating plants instead.
Yeah, if that's your view.
I think it's your view, Steve. I think it's your view because
It's
I think you keep telling me that you care about the animals, you want to reduce animal suffering because you care about like getting rid of factory farms. You wouldn't allow for dog fighting and stuff like that. So I think, Steve, you're more compassionate than you're letting on. I think you do care about animals more than what you say. But let's even say that you
I
didn't.
do I do care about animals. I'm not
Yeah,
saying I don't,
I
but
know.
I still I like to eat meat, so it doesn't bother me that like like once again, I believe they're put on this earth for us to eat, like dead ass. So
Right.
like
So I think we're both in agreement here that even though you might be indifferent on some parts of this, you do ultimately agree that the best thing that you could do to live in alignment with your own morals of trying to avoid causing harm to animals would be to avoid factory farming, and one step further would be to just eat plants and to not eat animals. Like, I don't think there's any denying in your logic that that would be the best case scenario. I'm not saying you're going to go and do that today. I'm just saying, according to what you believe, as far as avoiding suffering, unnecessary suffering, that would be the best case scenario.
Yes, but if I believed that we should not eat animals.
Well, even if you believe that we can eat animals, because in the Bible it says, we have dominion and we're able to do so, you would still believe that causing the harm to animals, if unnecessary, it would still be better to not cause the harm to animals if possible.
Yeah, and that's why I think buying locally owned farm animal, meat would be better than buying stuff from factory farms.
Yeah, and buying just plants
But
would be better than buying locally meat.
if you
Because it's,
believe that that we're not supposed to eat animals.
I'm just saying, not believing that we're not supposed to eat animals. I'm saying that you believe that it would be better to not harm animals if we can.
It is in the harm animals is like going downstairs and kicking your dog,
But
raising
what
dogs
about,
for dog fights.
okay, but you can not cause harm to animals by just not sticking a knife in their throat for killing them for food either, because you don't need them to
True,
survive. So
but
you would still cause less harm to animals if you were just buying plants. And I think you would agree that not causing the harm would still be better than causing the harm.
in a layman's terms, yes, like that. Yes, obviously, if you don't want to harm animals,
Yeah.
not eating, you know. But once again, though, this kind of goes back to the fact, like, if even though you're not eat, even if I decide
Hey, Steve,
after
sorry.
this, I'm not gonna.
One second. Okay, sorry, Steve. Sorry, I had to interrupt you there. What were you saying?
No worries. I don't even remember, but I just looked at the time. I'm gonna have to get going pretty soon. So,
Okay,
like,
yeah, no problem. We can wrap up here in a second. All I was saying is
yeah,
that, like, I think if, your goal, or if something that you do care about is animal abuse and suffering on some level, then I think I agree with you that one step better than what you're doing now would be potentially to avoid factory farming. I think that's absolutely true. No argument there. I just think also one step better to cause even less animal suffering would be to avoid eating any animals at all. But even more important, like if you were just eating local grass fed, whatever it is, like again, over 95% of the meat comes from factory farms. You'd be eating so little meat, like your impact would be drastically different. But then also, like if you're a Christian, you said, right?
yes, sir.
So like, let's say that even if I think there's a really great biblical case for veganism. There's tons of vegan Christians actually, because of things that are in the Bible. And I actually have a video on this, so it'd be maybe something that you want to check out at some point in time. But from things like the ideal diet that God set for us in Genesis, which was just plants and stuff like that, to the message of love and compassion and how God talks about loving what he says the end vision will be, in end times, where even the lion will lay with the lamb, stuff like that, how Jesus came and ended animal sacrifice. I think there's a lot of reasons that we should care about animals that are even based out of biblical principles. But even if that weren't true, and even if that weren't the case, we could still take a look at the other aspects of what's going on this planet and how it affects humans and how it affects the planet and God's creation that way too, and make a pretty strong argument for a vegan lifestyle for those benefits as well. If we take a look at what Jesus said, and the second greatest commandment of all is to love your neighbor as thyself, right? So if Jesus says to love our neighbor, then we should in theory be trying to reduce as much harm and suffering to them as possible too, as humans. But we know that animal agriculture is causing a ton of harm to human beings around the world. And so again, like, wouldn't we say that it's more even Christian or biblical to love our neighbors, to avoid the things that are causing harm to them? Wouldn't that also be better, even if we didn't care about animals at all? Even if you were the person that's like, I think kicking dogs is totally fine. Like, even if you like went to that extreme, wouldn't we still say if something's causing harm to our brothers and sisters, shouldn't we try to avoid that as well?
Yes, but once again, if you wanted to say that anything that's causing harm, that means we'd have to stop driving our cars. We have to stop buying, the lithium batteries, because the don't they don't even get me started on like, the electric cars, because how much the damage it does to the earth for one of those batteries. Um,
Sure.
but so yeah, you'd have to completely if you wanted to absolutely no harm, there'd be you'd have to stop living the way Western civilization we are living,
Right. And
which once again, it's never going to go back to that.
it's not no harm, but couldn't you do the least amount of harm possible? Like that's easy to do. Like we live in 2020. It's easy to go to the grocery store and pick up just plants, vegan options. Instead of chicken, you pick up chickpeas. Like all of the options are right there in front of you. It's not difficult in this if you live in like the civilized Western world and you have grocery stores that are convenient and stuff to you. It's not a massive sacrifice in to cause much less harm. Like you said, in some circumstances, like the phone or what you're talking about, it might be harder to do that because how can you get a phone or have this job or whatever it is? But you're already going to the store. You're already buying food there. So it's just as simple as picking up a different option. And again, if you see the two shirts and you go, one is made ethically, one is made from slave labor, I can buy either one right now. Wouldn't it be better to buy the one that causes less harm if possible?
So once again, goes down to personal preference.
But isn't your
Uh,
personal preference to avoid harming humans?
well, I don't think me buying a burger is harming. Me buying a steak at the store is harming my neighbor.
But it is, isn't it? Like, so, and I totally
Not
understand why.
not anymore.
I
I
totally
said not
understand why
anymore
you would.
than
Go ahead.
I was gonna say not any more than buying an electric car.
Right. Okay. Maybe so. But if you had a choice then to buy an electric car or to buy something else that was better, you would say that buying the other one is better, right? If it's going to cause less harm to humans.
Buying a regular, well, I'd say buying a hybrid is probably the best thing. But even
Sure.
then, you're still got those lithium batteries, still got, you know, so
Right. So, but in that situation, like Steve, you're saying if we have these options available, like regular gas car, electric car, hybrid car, whatever it is, and you believe that hybrid car is going to cause the least amount of damage and suffering, you would very easily just say that's the best option. Like we should do that then. So the question back to you then is if we have these options where it's like buying factory farm meat and causing a lot of harm, buying local meat and causing some harm or maybe whatever it is, a minimal amount of harm, and then this other one causes way less harm to humans, to animals, and the planet, surely you would just say, well, that's the best option. I'm not saying again that you're going to just flip around today, go vegan, and that you're going to do that, but just in principle, if it's the one that causes the least amount of harm to humans, to the planet, and to animals, surely we would say that based on Christian morals and on your morals, that it's the best option if we can choose it.
in a sense that in the words that you're saying, yes.
Okay.
But but in my words, like I'm not twisting my word. I'm not saying that like, you know, like yes, when you put it like that, obviously, but it's still like I said, it once again comes down to personal preference. Even though I don't like, cruelty to animals, even though I don't agree with the factory farming, I'm I'm still gonna eat my meat because I personally like my meat.
Right. So it sounds like you're saying to me, like, look, I agree that eating animals would cause less harm to humans, or not being vegan, not eating animals would cause less harm to the animals, less harm to the environment, and therefore less harm to humans as well. But even though I know that, and that's what I think would be best morally, I'm still going to go do it. And it might be for a variety of challenges that you face. It might be because of taste, pleasure that you're trying to fight, or habits or tradition. I'm not saying that there's no challenge in doing it, But morally speaking, and just on principles, we would still agree, you and I, even though we're on different sides of what we're doing with our actions, we would agree that morally the best choice would be to cause less suffering to animals, humans, and the environment. Like, I think we can agree there, right?
I mean, I don't, without getting too deep into the weeds, I don't really see. I mean, I think I've actually watched one of your videos about like the environmental uh that Austin posted.
Mhm.
Um, but I mean, I I'd have to say like uh, once again, can't find words. Uh, I hear it. Yeah, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I don't know how to answer that. Like, I would agree with you that like yes, if no animals were killed, nobody ate meat, you know, it would be the best. Yeah, like, but the fact that we do, and we're never, like you said, no one, the whole world's not going to go vegan overnight, you know. So even if I stopped eating meat today, factory farming is still going to be going on. Animals are still going to die.
But if you go vegan
Yeah,
today, not even today, if you go vegan in your lifetime and then, other people start to do it too, that's how things change. You're right. Slavery didn't end overnight either. Women's suffrage wasn't all of a sudden like just solved, and we didn't give women the right to vote overnight either. It started with individuals making changes, and it led to these great movements that caused global changes, that caused these changes in our society. So you're right. You going vegan today isn't going to change the rest of the world like that immediately, but you going vegan and not partaking in it yourself is not only in alignment with your morals personally of what you think is best, but also is a part of the change that's needed for us to change the world. If everyone just said, I'm not going to do it, I'm not going to invest into green energy or ever buy that because just me doing it doesn't make any difference, then no one would ever make a difference with anything. I assume, like, for your views and stuff like that, we don't have to get too much into the weeds on other things, but I assume you'd be against certain things like abortion or whatever else it is. And if everyone just took that same philosophy on maybe some of the other issues that you might feel strongly about, we would never change anything. Like, nothing would ever be changed. But individuals have to be the starting point for change. And for you, and if you're saying it's the best option, then it would make sense for you to also make that change. At least that's the way I see it, is that
sure.
logically it makes sense.
Yeah. So now it's this kind of going into like kind of the original topic that we kind of met on with pushing your opinions on people.
Yeah.
Like this, what comes down to the if you don't want to eat meat, that's fine. But like I am, I believe that like I said, if you don't want to eat meat, that's fine. If you but as soon as you start coming up to me with like I like not like this because we're having a conversation about it,
Yeah. Yeah.
but like for instance, I'm gonna throw this as an example. In Tucson, there's this one restaurant. It's called, what is it, Pig, I
Oink.
think. And I saw people like Link, yeah, something like that. Like,
It's called oink.
and Point, yeah. And I saw this one of buddies posted an article about like these protesters out there protesting it, like and like I don't bel-
Steve, do you feel
I
that way
don't
at
agree
all
with that
do you,
because
do you feel that
I
way
would
about
feel like,
protesters for other issues? What about people that would have been protesting slavery or protesting to get
okay,
women right to vote?
but
Like,
that's human rights.
but
Like
this is
I
also
just feel
involved
like if
human
it's something,
suffering, Steve. But this also involves human suffering. This involves our home where we live. This involves humans that are getting PTSD in slaughterhouses. This involves our top killers, heart disease, diabetes, cancer. Like, this involves a ton of human suffering too. This isn't just about the animals. And even if it was, I still think that it's right for protesters to be able to protest. Like, I think they should
oh,
still.
absolutely. But if you're gonna protest, like this is where I was getting at because this is the type of asshole that I am. If I was at that restaurant and they were protesting it, I would have ordered a huge plate of bacon and walked out there and ate it right next to them.
Sure, but who do you think that says more about? Like you said, you have to preface that statement with like, this is how much of an
Like
a-hole I am. Like, you know,
because because I just feel like when you're shoving your opinions down people's throat like that on a issue as simply, like I said, eating meat. Like, I don't see eating meat on the same plane of existence as like slavery or like women's right or civil rights. You know,
Sure,
I just
you might
that's when
not
it
see
comes
it
down to the
there.
point
I
where
don't think
it's like, bro, if you don't want to eat meat, cool, man. Like Hakuna Matata.
right. But I
You
think
know,
you can agree that it's a bigger issue than you're giving credit to here. I'm not saying it's equal to other forms of oppression or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. But it's much larger. I mean, 91% of the rainforest is being destroyed because of animal agriculture. It's destroying our planet. It uses 45% of our ice-free land, 33% of our water supply. It's the leading cause of oceanic dead zones, habitat destruction. I mean, it's destroying so much.
oh,
It has so much of an impact, right? So like
absolutely.
minimizing it to this like diet choice of like, well, look, man, they're out there protesting that you shouldn't wear black. Like, no, it's not like that. This has an immense impact on humans. There's trillions of animals that are being killed. We're destroying the marine life. It's the number one cause of a lot of our diseases. Like you can prevent, heart disease or at least minimize your risk for it and stuff like that. So it's using trillions of our dollars for healthcare. I understand that you might not be aware of all those things. I wasn't either. So I'm not saying like, oh my gosh, how do you not know this? Like, I didn't know any of this before
Yeah.
researching it. But once I researched it, I realized like, this is way bigger of an issue than just like, oh, you know what? They want to protest what you put in your mouth. Like, no, it's not about that.
Yeah.
It's about all these other things that are causing an immense amount of suffering and pain. So minimizing it to this like dietary choice is, I think, pretty trivial. Like, I don't think that that's fair to what protesters are doing. And even if that was the case, you might then argue like there's better ways to protest, there's better ways to get people to go vegan, there's better ways to do this. I think that's totally fair. We can critique all the arguments out there. Hopefully
Yeah.
you realize
Well,
that you like this
well,
conversation
yeah.
style better.
No,
Like,
so yeah, like what we're doing right now, that's totally fine. You know, I like this. I love having. I'll debate anybody with anything, right? Like I love debating. I love having conversations with people. But like, I can't stand when people are just like shoving it in your face. You know, they're just like, spewing. Like, if I wanted your opinion, I'd ask you for it. You know, like I said, like when we were having a conversation about it. You know,
yeah.
I posted my opinion and you posted your opinion. So I was like, okay, now we're in a conversation. You
Yeah.
know,
And I think
like, but
I
I'm not like shoving it in your face. I'm not. You know.
yeah, I hope that you haven't felt that way in this conversation either. I hope that you don't
Oh,
feel.
absolutely not.
Okay, good. So, yeah, I mean, we can argue about what's effective and what's not because there's certain things that are forms of activism that I agree with. That I go like, man, I'm glad they're out there doing it, but I don't know how much of an impact that has or how effective that is. So, I can agree with that, but that won't change our moral stances. Like you and
Yeah.
I, we're still going to say the
Oh,
best thing possible would be to reduce the human suffering, reduce the planet and environmental destruction, and to
yeah.
reduce the animal suffering as far as possible. So I think you and I both agree that living a vegan lifestyle would be best if we're trying to reduce human suffering, the environmental damage, and animal suffering.
Yeah, and they could obviously reduce the environmental all that by putting restrictions on stuff, you know,
Yeah.
like they, you know,
And that will come. That'll
but
come. There's talks about meat tax. There's talks about like, even just taking away the subsidies. I mean, beef and stuff like that only cost as little as it does because we pour so much of our tax dollars into those industries. So like a Big Mac, for instance, instead of costing like $6 or whatever it costs without the tax subsidies is estimated to cost around like $12 or $13. So yeah, if we just took away the subsidies or we started placing restrictions, that would help too. But we can also make an impact on our individual impact too and just make our individual decisions and go vegan ourselves. And I think that's where I came to the decision to go like, look, I care about human suffering. I care about the environment and I care about animal suffering. So logically, the best choice is for me to be vegan. Now, if I can be vegan, I should do that. And because I can, I did. Like, and that's why I made that decision. I hope at some point in time, maybe this argument has moved your needle even just a little. Who knows? Maybe not. But
they,
maybe
I
a little.
wouldn't be too hopeful, but maybe I don't know.
Well, regardless, I know that you're tight on time, and I really appreciate you taking the moment to chat with me here, especially on a busy day and a busy week and a busy year. So I really appreciate that. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate the conversation.
Oh, definitely, man. Yeah, definitely, man. And if you after you're finished recording, if you want to keep talking, that's fine. I just got to drive to the store now, but I mean, I have no issue keep talking with you off the air if you if you want.
If you made it to the end here, thank you very much for watching the whole video. Let me know what you thought of the conversation in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stop looking at what you can't do and start looking at what you can do. Thanks.